You'll want to know what to expect on your essay tests each week. And I have the rubric and a sample response posted for you. So let me review the rubric with you. So these are the elements I will look for when I'm grading your responses to the essay questions. And again, if you have taken good notes using the reading guide questions, you should already have some idea of how you would answer the test questions. So I will be looking for a good main idea at the beginning of the response, the topic or thesis, and also an idea that gives me a big so what at the end. So when you finish giving me all the details in your answer, be sure to give me a reason to reconnect back with your main point that you started with. So essays are similar to these sorts of responses, but if you write it all in one paragraph, for example, then whereas in an essay your thesis would be at the end of an introduction, then your thesis or main idea for this essay question will likely be in the beginning of your response. But make sure that the way you sum it up also at the end connects back to that main idea. In the middle of the response, you should use specific examples and illustrations. Now, you're not quoting from the textbook. You might happen to remember something that a character said. If that's the case, you can paraphrase it, but I'm not looking for you to use your textbook to go back and cite directly from the source. I want to know what you understand and what you remember based on your reading and your thinking about the text as you read. So one way to show me that you can use specific examples is to just name drop the characters like crazy. So if you know the characters' names and how those characters function to bring about elements of the plot or elements of a theme that are important, that will be a significant plus in your quality of writing. Another good way to elevate your response is to talk about certain symbols even or actions of the characters that evoke a certain archetype, for example, some sort of character that we have seen that type of character before. So an archetype is like a symbolic character. Of course, I want you to use a college level of grammar and punctuation. So look at all of your writing conventions, proofread your responses, go back and revise before you click that final submit for your test. And make sure to reread the question. Maybe you have forgotten to answer part of the question in your initial response to the question. So not only proofread your response, but reread the question and make sure you've answered all the elements there. It's easy to get on one track and be answering part of the question and then forget that you didn't answer all of it. And I don't want you to lose points just because you forgot to answer it and you actually knew the answer. So make sure you answer thoroughly, and this will go well for you. So let's look at a sample response. This is not something you will be asked about in this specific section of your world literature course. So many of you, however, are familiar with Hamlet. So I thought that would be a good source to use for demonstrating the kinds of things that I expect. And you can pull this up on Blackboard and look at my comments about why I feel each section of the response is useful for creating a thorough response. So the prompt is about the role of women in Hamlet. And I actually have two questions there, so I need to make sure I answer both of those. So One way to start out any response is to name the title of the work and the author, and then basically just respond as if the question were a statement you were making, because you're going to answer the question with your response, and your initial response is usually a good main idea. Then you want to give specific examples. So that's why I've highlighted for example, and then given another kind of transition word here. These purple words are just transition words to take the reader from one idea to the next. And I've even quoted from the source, but I have not cited it. I don't have the act, scene, and line number there. I'm just using that in quotation marks because I remember those exact words. So if you remember exact words, you're welcome to use them. That's fine. But you're not required to use quotations. You could say Hamlet tells Gertrude whatever the basic idea being conveyed there is. So you can do that as part of the detail of illustration and example that you give in your responses. And so just make sure that you give as many character names. Like I have all these different character names. That really helps show an instructor that you really know what the work is about. You know who the main characters are and how they function in the work to convey a theme. So you can see all of the different examples that I have given, and then I go back and reiterate my main idea, my main response to the question. So make sure you do that as well. It also gives you a chance to reconsider. It brings your attention back to what was the main idea that I started with, and is that where I went in my illustrations and examples? And if that's not where you went, then you might want to revise your main idea sentence. It's oftentimes easier to revise your thesis or your main point than it is to go back and revise all the content in the middle that you used as proof of your point. So that's one little trick that can help save you a lot of time and make sure that you answer thoroughly. All right, let me know if you have questions, and good luck on the test.